Today on Man Up, we'll talk with Rob Z, and we'll have a conversation about lit coaching.
Man Up is a series that challenges men to become strong, unique, discipled followers of Jesus. Troy Ferguson, Sean Tice, Victor Thomas, and today's guest host is Rob Z. Welcome to Man Up.
Welcome to Man Up. Recently, I was having conversations about health and fitness. I'd read a story about a woman who she exercised her rights all the time to be a great businesswoman, and she did. She was successful. She bought a mansion with 4-car garage and various vehicles that she had in her garage. But then one day she was afflicted. She became ill and she was hospitalized, and it became very severe. And it came to her attention that, man, I spent all that time exercising and getting strengthened to afford all these things, but here I am in a nursing home, and now I can't even drive all those fancy vehicles. That mansion that I have with all those rooms, I can't even sleep in them. I have to sleep in this hospital. And you know, health is something that you cannot buy. It says in 1 Timothy 4:7 that physical health and exercise profiteth little, but godly exercise is profitable all things. And that's what I want to impress upon you. Do you spiritually exercise? Are you dedicated to a church? If not, find a good church to get into. Accept the Lord, because there's a time that all of us will be laid in that casket and we will be absent in body but present with the Lord up above. So encouragement. Yes, it's good to go to the gym and exercise. This is the temple where the Holy Spirit dwells. But also, prepare yourself for the afterlife. Get spiritually fit with exercising daily, reading your Bible and praying. These things will be beneficial to you. I guarantee it. Stay tuned for this episode of Man Up.
Impact Productions, a multi-layer technology company providing on-site, online, and in-studio video services. Contact Impact Productions to capture your story.
Welcome back to Man Up. And we have my brother Rob Z with us today. Hey, Rob, you're familiar with the show. Tell the people about yourself, but also Rob Z. Where does Rob Z come from?
So I was, to go to that story first, I was a radio DJ in the area for 20 years. Rob Z was my radio name, and but just stuck. People know me as that. I like using it, so that's it. I just kept it. That's where it came from. We had a station many years ago. We were the Alphabet Posse, and they named me Rob Z, and I was like, okay, let's roll with it. And so now, a business coach. I have a company called Lit Coaching, Lead, Impact, Transform. The lit is also like, we all have a fire inside of us. How do we grow that fire and put it out into the world? And I think that for a lot of, I have this shirt on, the Unstuck movement, right? My whole mission is to help people get unstuck to find breakthrough in their lives. Mm-hmm. And that looks like many different things, but I noticed working in businesses, you can also get into the professional part of people's lives too, right? Professional and personal. Let's bridge those two gaps, because what I've noticed over the years for myself, and I know for other people too, is if you're having trouble professionally, there's something personally that also needs breakthrough.
Sure.
So how do we find those breakthroughs? And especially when it comes to business, it's a lot easier to talk business right away than to talk personal stuff. So if we can talk business and find out where things are going wrong there, maybe it's communication, leadership, hiring the right people, keeping the right people, finances, whatever it might be, there's usually an issue underneath that can be addressed, and that's usually a personal thing to address. Mm. So I just love that whole journey, finding breakthrough. What does that look like, and how do we uncover those kind of things?
Great.
Rob, when we get into some of this stuff, what is business coaching? If it maybe, because life coach, business coach, talk a little about what that even is and what do
Well,
with that?
it can mean a million different things, obviously, right? I mean, and usually the situations do look like a bunch of different things, but underneath it, there's a core set of things that I always go to identify. And those things are like, what are the values in your business that your business runs under? What is the vision for the business? So you look 10 years out, where are you planning on taking this thing? Values, vision, mission, and then how do we, on a day-to-day basis, how do we get there? So what is breaking that down into our goals? Those goals, you could say 5-year goal, 3-year goal, 1-year plan, but then quarterly, daily. What are the actions we're going to take to get to where we have to go? And I think what happens so often in life, number one, this is what I found over the past couple of years. It is crazy because nobody ever in school teaches us about vision. We never talk about it. Nobody ever talks about your vision for your life, right? It's like not even mentioned. We don't even bring it up. So nobody knows how to look for it in your life. So we also don't know how to look for it in our business, and it's hard to envision that, to picture that. Where do we want to go? So I would say in business coaching, that's the big thing that I focus on, is where do we want to take this? And as we're taking it there, if problems come up, which they always do, if you don't have a solid vision for where you're going, problems are just problems. Now you're putting out fires every day, but if you have a vision for where you're going, problems become the catalyst to get you to where you want to go. You need problems to help to propel you forward. And so when it comes to business coaching, that's my goal, is to figure out like what is the underlying theme here, what's missing, how do we get the vision laid out, and then how do we put puzzle pieces to get there. And what I've found over the years is just communication is the biggest issue, I think, in life in general. The better your communication, the better your life is. The better your communication is, the better your business is. And so many times in business, anybody who has a business or has been in the business knows that's the hardest thing. That's where the breakdowns happen, where conversations don't happen, problems come up, they don't get addressed, people confront people in the wrong way, and we don't build like win-win scenarios. And the more we can do that, the better we grow personally and professionally.
Rob, you
That
already touched on it a little bit, but how does it benefit an organization?
What? Communication?
Yeah, leadership coaching.
Well, I personally think we should all be leaders of our own lives. If we're not leading our own life, then somebody else is leading it, whether we know it or not. So if I'm not taking control of my own life and steering it where I want it to go, then somebody else is going to do it for me if I'm not aware of that, right? So same in leadership in business. If the people who are in leadership don't know where they're going and are just putting out fires, or maybe they're stuck in their ego, or there could be a million different things that are going on, right? Then the organization is only going to go as far as they can take it. Yeah. And that shows up in many different shapes and forms, as many different kinds of problems, but at the bottom of it all, really, from my perspective, is a failure in communication. If we can have better communication, we become better leaders, and we can bring everybody else along with us.
That's good.
Good, Troy. Back to you.
Well, I want you to walk us through, and you can use me as an example with this show, of a session.
Okay.
So if someone calls you, they hire you as a business coach, what are some things, even in preliminary, to walk through what this would look like for someone? In case someone feels like, I might benefit from this. Yeah. Maybe they can see a little bit of I realize this could be a 5-minute sample versus you're having long conversations and so forth, but we can give a little bit of an example of what this would look like.
Well, so when we first met, sit down.
I'm Troy.
Troy, I'm Rob. Nice to meet you. I hear you have a business.
I do.
And it's not going well. You need it fixed. It's
because of these guys. They're the problem.
Oh, that's it. There you go. That's it right there. Blame everybody else. That's usually how it goes. That's perfect. That's a perfect setup. So the first session is just it's discovery. Like, what's going on? Like, what's going right? What's going wrong? Where would you want it to go? So I guess man up. Like, what would the vision be? What's the long-term vision? Where would you want to take it?
National television.
Okay.
That
sounds good.
There you go. This sounds good.
But in seriousness, okay, let's say we want to impact men.
Yeah.
A larger audience of men through television, the internet, or whatever, just through teaching and getting people to step up, men to step up. That's kind of like the general vision.
And so what are some of the roadblocks that you've seen along the way of getting that reality to happen?
Well, I would say that some of the challenges is just to get people to come on and talk about their organization or their life or their testimony. Just the time to make some of that happen. And maybe that's on my end, but yeah, the time to get people and figure out who would be best to accomplish that.
So you got these two guys with you. How do they play a role in all of this?
Well, both of these guys in this scenario, both of these guys give input and so forth, insight to the show when we're here. And then if there's a guest that they know, someone they know that I don't have a relationship with, that they can pull in contact to possibly get us connected for a recording.
Now, are you guys like totally on board with the vision of what he has set for Man Up?
Sure.
Like the direction he wants to take it in?
Yeah.
We're kind of laying it all out there, aren't we?
I mean, I was thinking international.
You wanted me to go through this?
Yes, I did.
And he hasn't gotten to the personal aspect yet.
What were you going to say?
I was just international sounds better to me.
Okay,
International. There we go.
Worldwide. Perfect. Yeah.
Syndicated international. We got it.
So I'm curious for you guys, aligning with the vision. So what does it look like for you? What role do you feel like you're playing in the journey of taking this to international markets?
You know,
I don't know.
Firstly, you don't always look at like your own personal goals. You really get feedback from the community input, how you're affecting people to see, and we get that all the time. People approach, hey man, your program, I really got something out of it. This guy came on, this guy shared a personal testimony. So when you factor in the Christian perspective,
Yeah.
you know, of how it is helping people, then you know how broad you can take it. Is this something that the whole the country, United States, wants to hear? Is this something internationally that will help overall? Then you would go from there by the feedback that you get.
I love that. Anything you want to add to that?
I think I'm good. Yeah, I think it's good. Victor covered it.
But I think that's the big piece of it, right, is impacting one person. I look at that too. It's like, if what you do is impacting one person, you're doing the right thing that day, right? Because you can't predict, like, going into a business, I can't expect everybody's going to change. It's really hard to get yourself to change. I can barely control myself, let alone control anybody else, right? So if you're going to have this mindset of like, well, I'm going to change everything and it's going to happen overnight, like it's unrealistic. But if you can make tiny little improvements, right? One of my favorite books is The Slight Edge. The Slight Edge is like just tiny improvements every day, just little tiny things every day. They're easy to do, they're easy not to do. Making your bed, right? Checking in on the people you work with. Easy thing to do, easy not to do. Simple little things throughout your day. And so I look at that like making those changes in a business is like you often, well, all the time, you have to go back to the basics, the fundamentals, which for me, the fundamental is how you communicate with yourself and how you communicate with others. And if you're a man of God, how do you communicate with God? Like, what is that relationship like? That trickles down to you, and that goes out to everybody else. And so it's the same with this platform, same with the Unstuck movement, with Lit Coaching. That's what it is. It's understanding that it starts with me, and if I can make a change in my life today to positively improve myself, then I'm going to do that for somebody else too.
Man, that sounds fantastic. I wanted to dive back into the personal aspect of this when we come back. Can you stick around?
Sure.
We got to pay the bills. We'll be right back in a minute.
This segment is brought to you by Harry's Construction, whose motto is, if you can dream it, we can create it. They are the kitchen and bath design experts, so call Harry's Construction for all your remodeling needs.
Welcome back to Man Up. Troy, I believe you had a question.
Yeah, we were getting into, before the end of the last segment, getting into the business and the personal aspect of it. Why is life and business coaching so important?
Well, you know, just like you can relate it to sports in the sense of if you don't have a coach when you're playing sports, you're kind of just screwing off the entire time. Somebody might eventually put everything together, but a lot of the times that's not what's going to happen. And I think especially when it comes to business, there's so many different aspects. Why do most people start a business? They usually start it because they're good at one thing. Then you get into the business and you're like, well, wait, I don't even get a chance to do my one thing most of the time. I got to do these 8 million other things that come along with it.
True. That's
And
true.
so I found that for myself. So when I got into I started the digital marketing company back in 2017, I realized really quickly, like, I don't know how to like take payments. I don't know how to cover the finances. I don't know how to schedule things. Like, you find all these things, you don't know what to do. And so I brought a mentor in, and he started helping me. I realized that coaching was a thing. I had gotten a coach a couple years in, and I really just loved the concept of coaching. I'm like, this is something everybody should have. Nobody really ever talks about this. Talking about vision in the last segment, right? Nobody talks about vision. Nobody talks about mentorship either. Like, mentorship's so important, and being very intentional about it. I think sometimes we stumble into somebody who can be a mentor for us, but being intentional about it is huge. And so coaching for me was like, it changed the way I looked at everything, because now I have somebody that's keeping me accountable, and I have to keep myself accountable to like what I'm saying that I'm supposed to be doing. Number one, if you don't know what you're supposed to do, then you're just completely lost. But once you know what you're supposed to do and you're still not doing it, keeping yourself accountable. Some people are that disciplined that they don't need a coach. Other people, most of us, need somebody who's going to kind of guide us along that journey. And also to point out blind spots. I think anybody who's married knows this, right? Your significant other points out the blind spots, and that's sometimes a good thing, sometimes not, because you don't want them to be exposed, right? But a coach helps you to expose those things. What am I missing? What am I looking past that if I got it right would change everything, right? So I would say in life and in business, that is the big piece of the puzzle, is pointing out the blind spots. And then a coach isn't necessarily supposed to make you do things. It's keeping you accountable to what you said you were going to do. Like, so when we just went through that a second ago, and I was asking you questions, right? It's asking questions, because you tell somebody to do, like a kid, you know, if you have kids, you know, if you tell them to do something, they're probably not going to do it. But if you ask them questions that help them get to their own solution, they're more likely to do the thing.
Right.
And we're all big kids, so we're all like that, right? We all.
That's true.
We all if we come to our own conclusion, we're more likely to move forward. If our boss is telling us, you got to do this, then you aren't going to do it, or you're going to do it begrudgingly and then have resentment towards that person. So
now, do you find when we were talking about the getting into some things personally, have you found in a business coaching situation, you found like, okay, we're getting into some pretty personal things here that's beyond your maybe training?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've run into situations where it's like, that's a therapist's job or a counselor's job or mental health, but not very often. That doesn't usually happen. A lot of the stuff, and if that does happen, I've referred people like, that's not my. One simple example, somebody had been grieving a loss of somebody, and I'm like, I can't. I can tell you my own experiences, but I'm not trained in this, you know what I mean? Yeah. But mostly everything else, it's personal development stuff. So it's just personally making yourself better, seeing your flaws, seeing your limitations, and then working on them. And it's interesting too, because you don't want to get caught up in all the things I'm doing wrong. The real goal is to find out what you do really well and then do more of that. And can I delegate the rest of it? Can I get other people to help me with the other pieces of the puzzle? Because you can only get incrementally better at things you're not that good at. But if you focus on the things you're really good at, then you can go to a level that not many other people go to, right? The giftings that God gives us, we should really step into those giftings and use those all the time in what we do. And that's on a personal level before it's a professional level. I've always loved communicating, right? So I do that a lot in my personal life, but I also know how valuable it is professionally. And when we can marry those two together, I think what happens a lot of times is we'll separate business and personal life. We'll think of them as two different things. But the more you bring them together, especially if you own your own business, the more you bring those two worlds together, the more you feel congruent with what you're doing. I always think, I was a radio DJ for years, right? I used to try to be the radio guy and do like a radio voice and, you know, put this like persona on. And the more I realized, just be yourself. Mm-hmm. That's what works. People just want you to be yourself. That's why when you have a salesman who's trying to sell you on stuff and he's not really listening to you, you feel gross about it. But when you meet somebody who genuinely wants to help, then it's a whole different story.
You've given out a couple different terms, mentorship, coaching. Is there any difference between those two?
Well, a mentor, I guess a mentor, you could pay a mentor, but usually you don't pay your mentors. They're usually just somebody who's helping you. Coaching is usually you pay for it. Mentorship, I would say, is more loose.
Organic,
yeah. I've had a mentor now for a few years who, amazing guy, and we're friends. He started out as my coach. I started out with the first 2 years, I paid him, and then we became good friends. And now we meet up a couple times a month, and
It's cheaper that way.
it's it's cheaper that way. And it's like I think as relationships grow, it's you could look at it. A mentor is more of just kind of like a guide, there to sit, listen, advise. But a coach is like pushing you and moving you
That's
forward.
good. Yeah.
There could be different definitions for that.
And there's a need for both. I mean, really.
100%. I think we all should. I think we all should have a mentor, and we all should be a mentor for somebody, right? That should be something we strive for in our life. We should always have somebody we're helping and somebody that's helping us. It's what we're built to do, I feel like.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now I see your shirt, the Unstuck Movement, and we're here for lit coaching. How long have you been going with the lit coaching now?
It's coming up on 4 years. 4 years, I believe, in April of 2026.
And you still have the podcast for Unstuck.
Yeah, the Unstuck Movement. So this is kind of like, I guess you could say, the ministry part of it. Like I love finding breakthrough. I love testimonies. I love the stories of how people got out of really difficult spots in their life. I just find them fascinating. I find the stories fascinating because we all need those examples. We've all been stuck, and we're probably all stuck somewhere, right? So I think we're always like hitting plateaus, and then you get kind of complacent, and then you're like, oh, I need more. You go further, or something happens in your life that never came up before, and you're like, oh, I've got to address this thing. If I don't address it, then it's going to kind of always be there, and it's going to be holding me back. And there's a million different examples of that, but getting unstuck is, I think that's what God calls us to do, like from glory to glory, right? We have to keep pressing into Him, and He's going to guide us through these different parts of our lives that we might not want to face, you might not want to look at, but if you don't look at them, then you'll be stuck.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll be what it is.
And I think that fits each and every man at this table. An invitation would be great. I know I already got one. I don't want to ruffle any feathers here.
To be on the show.
to come on to,
I would love to have you on
to the podcast.
He has asked me. I was just teasing, but I think it's interesting because these podcasts are lengthy. It's not a 5-minute discussion. You get into some deep stuff with it.
It's hard to get through a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. You know what I mean? 40 minutes. I try to be around 40 minutes just because when you're interviewing somebody and I don't know the person, I've got to first, hear the story and then how they got through the story, how they help other people do that. And a lot of times you go down rabbit holes, because there's just things. So what I've done with the Unstuck Movement, I find themes, right? So I was just saying before this that I have probably a list of 96 themes now that I hear come up over and over and over again, like making your mess your message, turning your baggage into luggage. What's the words that we say to ourselves? How do we speak to ourselves? That's something that always shows up. There's always themes that are they're like cliches, right? Mm-hmm. And cliches are cliches for a reason because they're true and they've stood the test of time. They've been around for thousands of years. So when you hear those things, pay attention to them because it's signs of here's where it's tools you can use to get through life.
So if I hear you in a sense, it's pretty much a comeback stories that
100%,
you have. Give us one of your favorites. What when you saw a transformation of someone?
Oh man, yeah, there was this great lady, Debbie Chamberlain. She's so cool. I think she's out of Georgia. So she grew up. Her parents. She grew up in Florida back in the '60s, and her parents. They had, I think, 5 kids. She was middle kid. Her parents just left one day. They just left the kids at the house. Just took off.
Wow.
These 5 kids were just left there living by themselves, and through that, they got brought into this foster care home. Through that, she met Dolly Parton, who funded the thing, and she grew. She became this real estate mogul in her area, and she goes back to tell the story of those were the greatest days of her life, living with her siblings. They were all under the age of 12 together for months in this house. They just lived together. And she said every once in a while, the dad would come and drop off a big pot of goulash, and that's all they had to eat, and then he'd leave. I'm just blown away by how that could even happen. But the fact that her attitude was incredible. Her attitude just, you would never know that was her life and she had gone through all that. And just understanding that mindset of perseverance, because some of her siblings, they didn't make it through, right? Sure. They're still stuck in all of that stuff. And she, used it for good. And I think that's the biggest part of, that's what God does, is he redeems our stories, right? The mess into the message. Like, she took that mess, and now she, after being a real estate mogul, now she goes out and she tells that story. She wrote a book. She helps other people go through really hard things by, you know, giving her testimony. And those testimonies are everything, because you can pick something out of everybody's story that you're like, man, that was, all right, I've been through that, or that piece of advice is really helpful to help pull you through things. But her story stuck out to me just because, can you imagine at like the age of like 8, your parents leaving and you're left in your house with your siblings, like Lord of the Flies kind of thing, right? That would just be crazy. So hers stuck out also because of how much she loved God, and she always did through all of that. And just her attitude is just incredible.
That's beautiful. Hey, we want to thank you for coming on today. The old clock on the wall says that's about all.
Yeah.
We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much, guys. Cool to be here.
Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode of Man Up. To wrap up this show, we're going to give you some excerpts of Rob Z's coaching philosophy on lit coaching. Watch this.
Today we're going to talk about teammates. We're going to talk about marriage. We're going to talk about marriage because it's incredibly important to God, and in our society, it's incredibly important, but has been treated like it's not important at all, which has caused a lot of issues in our society. What role does God play in your business?
It's a great question, and I think God plays a number of different roles in my business. In some ways, he was the founder of my business. I remember God calling me to quit my job and start Faith to Influence, and it was a time when it didn't make a whole lot of sense. My wife and I had just had our first baby, because my job was providing enough to provide the income for the family, and it was my second day back after paternity leave that I felt like God was calling me to quit that job and start my business.
Before Janine's passing and after, how did the conversations that you had, your career approach, and your outlook at the world change before and after?
I think I took a lot of things for granted. You know, I had this very linear view of how my life was going to go. I had a career that I enjoyed. I figured after my career I'd retire, settle down, and then the universe said, "No, this is your plan does not align with our plan."
Thanks again for joining us today on Man Up. Please tune in again next week.
Next time on Man Up, we're going to talk to Jeremy Gina about an issue involving most men.
Found the Lord at, at 20, 24, 25, 26 years old. But the problem was I had already opened these doors previously, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of times, maybe not for everybody, but for me, those certain doors are very hard to shut.
All that and more next time on Man Up.